Howdy guys and gals, I'm Kyle Broderick. Welcome to the Social Regressive. Before we dive into the video where we're going to take a look at all the different parts that are on this rifle and which ones we're going to add to turn this into what I want it to be, I wanted to sound off about this color, and I want you guys to sound off as well. I have seen this, what they call the Bazooka Green Cerakote at CMMG. I have seen this before on military equipment, and I want you guys to tell me where you've seen it. This is not your average olive drab, which tends to be a little bit on the darker side, maybe just a little bit more yellow, but it's also not forest green. It seems to be something very specific, and I know that I've seen some military equipment that has this. So if you recognize what this has been painted on, is it bazookas? I don't know, you guys tell me in the comments below. But I really love it. It's a gorgeous color, and I can't wait to get this out into the woods and all that to see what this actually looks like out there. This is the CMMG Endeavor, so this is going to be one of their long rifles. Remember that their Banshees are going to be their SBRs, and AR pistols, that's going to be the small ones. Then you have the Resolute, which is more of your carbines, and then this is designed more for precision work. A lot of these are designed really for prone shooting and bench shooting. But this one is going to have some extra tricks up its sleeve today, so we're going to take a really close look at this. You're going to be interested to see what this rifle can do right here. This is a level 300, so that's going to be all the uprated parts. You can get, the same barrel lengths and a lot of the same important hardware in some of the lower levels, like the 200 and the 100, but this one at the 300 level is going to include some really uprated parts. They can do some pretty specific things. The biggest thing is going to be what's going on back here, the caboose. This is the Magpul PRS, which, as many of you know, I think I did a full video on this. Love, love, love what's going on back here. This is very comfortable, both in the shoulder and on the cheek, and it does provide a little bit of extra weight and balance toward the rear, so that this just really settles down when it comes time to do a long shot, especially in the prone. Love that thing right there. But we're getting distracted. The big deal here is that this is chambered for 6mm ARC. That's that new cartridge that is a lot like 6.5 Grendel, but it uses a 6mm bullet instead of a 6.5. And this is one that I am very interested to see how it can perform at long distance. This is one that is designed to increase the amount of power that you can get on a target like game at some of your intermediate distances. And then it also should have really good wind fighting abilities and a very good trajectory for getting out to some of the more extreme distances. Like, this should, no trouble, be a 1,000 yard cartridge, especially in a setup like this with a little bit of a longer barrel. So speaking of that longer barrel, we're going to dive in here and see what all the parts are, and I'm going to show you how I'm going to set this rifle up for my own work. I've picked out some specific parts that are going to meet my needs when it comes time to take that 1,000 yard shot. Real quick though, before we dive in, make sure you check out the video on 6mm ARC that I put together, contrasting and comparing it with all kinds of other cartridges that meet sort of the same needs. We have a lot of flat shooting cartridges that we're getting into now for the AR-15 platform, ones that provide a lot more energy than you're going to get from 223. And that's kind of the big deal here, is that we are using the AR-15 platform, which is much lighter and smaller overall. You can of course get into much flatter shooting and heavier hitting cartridges with the AR-10, like the Endeavor 300 and 6.5 Creedmoor that we tested a while back, and you should check that video out too. But this is keeping everything much smaller, lighter. If you want to take an offhand shot with this, I think it's going to be totally doable, but it's also going to be much easier to pack out to wherever you need to do your shooting. Here's a close view of that Bazooka Green. Much to my wife's chagrin, I pretty much only wear earth tones, and of course I love camouflage and earth tones on my rifles. I want them to blend in some of the environments that I get out to, because this is not just a range toy for me. I plan to do some hunting with this. I think this would be a really cool coyote rig. All right, let's take a look at some of the things that make this pretty special in the market, and some of the levels that we're going to be dealing with. First off, you're going to notice that, we do have these matched receivers right here, and these are going to be standard on the level 100, 200, and 300, which you see right here, and they're all going to have this handguard out front, which, as you can see, is very long. This, I think, is a 15-incher right here. And it's just very smooth and light overall. They've come up with a really solid design that it doesn't really seem to bend or flex. You can depend on whatever bipod you have stuck out on the end of this, and you shouldn't really worry about things flexing or getting weird. And if you have sights out on the end, same thing. I've never noticed any point of impact shift. This is a great little thing, and then it has Picatinny on the top, as you can see. So you have really just one kind of continuous rail going all through this. The Level 300 also includes this big old kind of ambidextrous latch. You can grab this from either side and it will unlock. The Magpul MOE grip down here was a really good choice. This is one that sits a little bit more vertical than you're going to get with a lot of other AR-15 grips, and it kind of fills the hand very well. This is one that I find very comfortable in both the prone and offhand. Great choice there. This Level 300 has an ambidextrous safety selector, so we can switch from either side with a forefinger or a thumb. If you're a lefty, you're going to like this model. And then moving up a little bit, we have this trigger guard, which kind of descends a little bit. It opens up a bit so you can get your gloved fingers in there. Good choice. And then the magazines, this does come with one 6.5 Grendel magazine with a blue follower. So they've kind of color-coded their followers so you can hopefully tell which magazine is which. And actually, it is stamped right on the follower which cartridge this is set up for. And remember that this magazine can handle other cartridges other than 6.5 Grendel, to include 6mm ARC. This 10-round mag is a good start. If you want to pick up more though, CMMG does actually sell these from their own catalog. And then if you want to get into some higher capacities, check out C Products and their Duramag line. These are the 350 Legend mags that we checked out before. They have a whole bunch of different items, and I've used C Products mags for a good long while. I really like them. They seem to always function really well for me, and they have a bunch of more extended models for 6.5 Grendel. The big deal with the Level 300 Endeavor is this right back here. This is the Magpul PRS buttstock. This has adjustable cheek riser and adjustable butt pad back here so you can get your perfect length of pull, and you can actually cant and raise and lower this butt pad right back here. All you have to do is just loosen up a couple of Allen screws back here. We showed this off with the Endeavor 300 and the Evolution in 6.5 Creedmoor, and this is just perfect for those of you that want to do especially prone shooting. This is extremely comfortable. It's going to make sure that your cheek is in the right spot when your eye is in the right spot looking through the scope, and then it does have all kinds of little extras like the ability to use quick detach slings. We can pop right in here, or you can clip on with some of the clip type. You also have an extra socket right here for those slings. And moving forward, if you do want to add a sling socket to the front up here, you're going to have to use some kind of extra part. So I do recommend Grove Tech. I'll put a link to that video right here because we'll probably put one of those sockets here on the side. Even with this 20-inch barrel, this feels light enough that I could use this for offhand shooting, and this is something that I was not expecting. The 6.5 Creedmoor version that we used with its bigger AR-10 parts and everything, just bigger overall, bigger receivers, bigger bolt, bigger everything. That really was not an offhand rifle, and this one feels like it is. It's very handy to grab and point. And we're going to try a little bit of offhand shooting, I think, with this, because I really do like a flexible rifle that will not only work in the prone, and I expect that this will work really well for that. It should be very precise and kind of settle down really well, but I think that this will be light enough and balanced well enough, especially with that heavier buttstock back there, that I can fire this offhand if that kind of pop-up shot appears. And that is a big deal for me, especially when we used to go out prairie dog hunting. Sometimes a prairie dog would be in closer than we expected, and some of the only shots that we could take were offhand. And if you have a huge varmint rifle, that doesn't really work. I've saved one of the best elements for last. This trigger is a Geissele SSA. This is a 2-stage trigger, so it's going to have that. Here, let's go ahead and switch it over to semi and show you guys that there's nothing in there. A 2-stage trigger has this slack that you have to take up. So that's just nothing, and then you hit this hard shelf. And then when you continue to apply pressure, there's no movement of the trigger until snap, it breaks. This is not a smooth trigger, this is a good trigger. This is one that is very crisp. It just breaks right over that shelf, that glass rod breaking that we all talk about. And then you have a very small over travel. And that's it. So this is going to be very precise and quick. This is going to work really well up close and in some of the quicker shooting. And then if I need to be very precise about this feels pretty much as good as any bolt action trigger out there. Now this does have a little bit of a higher pull weight than you're going to get with a lot of the modern bolt action rifles. This feels like it's a little bit north of 4.5 pounds, but I do not mind. I much prefer having crisp over very light. This trigger is going to work out really well for very precise shooting at long distance. All of these elements add up to a solid platform that should be very precise at any distance that I want. I should be able to hit small targets up close and even pretty small targets really far away. This lightweight barrel is probably not going to hold this back at all, just because of what I'm used to with CMMG. They pick their parts very precisely, and I've had some of their other barrels that are cut to this same profile, and I don't think it's going to give up any performance at all. What we need to do now is outfit this for hitting things at very long distance. So what we're going to be working with is the US Optics TS20X. I've had this in the wings and I've already done a review on this, so check that video out. And this is sitting in a 0 delta mount right here. This is quite lightweight, even though it looks like a big chunk. It's skeletonized everywhere. It has all kinds of holes drilled out of it to help keep it very light. And this is one that should be very, very solid. This is a quick release platform that you see right here. So I can just push on these to loosen it up to attach it and detach it. And this does not move once it's in place. There we go. Once it's locked onto the rail and shoved all the way forward, all I have to do is tighten these up, just finger tight. You don't need to do any weird torquing, and that is ready to go. The US Optics TS20X is a big, heavy scope. It has a 34mm tube. This should be plenty tough for all kinds of scenarios that I might find myself in, and it's going to have lots of adjustment range while keeping very large lenses. This is a 50mm objective in here, and the lenses that work their way all the way through this tube should be larger than normal to get the really good precise resolution that we're getting out of this scope. This is one that has a very beautiful image, good color reproduction. This does have side focus, which will actually spin all the way down to 10 yards. So this is one that you can use at pretty much any distance. And if you couple that, especially with the fact that this can zoom from 20x all the way down to 2.5x, no matter what distances you're dealing with, this is going to take care of the job. Especially when you consider that this 34mm tube is going to get you over 30 milliradians of adjustment in here. This is ready for getting out to 1,000 yards. Some nutty people might take this out even further than that, and the cartridge should still be able to get on target past 1,000 yards, and this kind of scope is one that will be ready to do that. The milliradian turrets that you see here have a good click to them. They have a good sound, and you can feel it when they move. They're also a little bit on the larger side, so it's easier to see exactly where you have clicked on here. That applies to both the elevation and the windage. That FFP reticle can be illuminated by turning this dial anywhere from 1 all the way up to the hilarious 11. And so you're going to get red illumination if you're in a situation where maybe the background is a little bit messy and you're having a hard time seeing your reticle, or if it's just past dusk and you want to see things a little bit better. This is especially going to be good for those times when you're down at 2.5x. You're going to be able to just illuminate that center area, which might be a little bit thin for the most part, but then once you light it up, you're going to very easily see where you're aiming. Every shot that we take, especially at long range, is going to include a lot of variables, and we want to eliminate as many of these as possible. We can't really do anything about atmospheric pressure or wind. Those are the ones that we have to be constantly watching to make sure that we can make that hit. But there are certain things that are under our control, and we need to get this rifle squared away as much as we can, turn this rifle from a set of variables into a set of constants, so that when I'm out there, I don't have to think about what the rifle is doing. That's why I have a good solid trigger on here. That's why I'm going to have a comfortable butt pad back there. It's going to have a good scope. I'm not going to have to worry about any of that. But stability is a really big deal. I want this to sit flush to the ground and not wiggle around, not move. I don't want any moving parts on here if I can help it. And that is where this bipod is going to come in. You're going to have a bunch of good options that you could choose for your individual rifle, but I am going to highly recommend this one.
I did a full review on this a while back, and I'll link to it here. This is the UTG Recon Flex bipod. And at only 45 bucks, as purchased on Amazon just the other day, this is much more stable than you can imagine. This comes in 2 parts that are M-LOK, and here I'll pull this out. This attaches directly to the rail here on the side, and it has a much wider stance than pretty much any other bipod that you can get out there. There are, of course, Atlas models, and I think Accutac, some of the others that have a wide stance like this one, but you certainly cannot get into that kind of stance with anything down around this price range without getting into the UTG Flex. Each leg of the bipod has a control here for changing the angle, so I can go at a 45, I can go at a 90, and I can put it into stow mode, so it's either pointing forward or backward. This is spring-loaded right here, and it has a little detent that snaps into place and keeps it from moving once it's gotten into its particular spot right here, one of these cutouts. This is extremely solid. This is not one that flexes much at all. So if you are shooting along with a moving target, this is actually kind of difficult to use. And I mentioned that in the bipod review. But when it comes time to take a very solid shot, there's almost nothing better out there, especially not at this price range. Down here we have controls for the length. If you want to pull the leg out all the way to its biggest length, and this is the 8 to 11.8 inch model. I think that's how long this goes. And this is what I'm going to recommend for any ARs, just because of how tall they tend to be with that grip and the magazine. Yeah, you can just yank it out to get this to the full height, and you can press this button to lock into one of the the notches that we see right here. If you want to get very precise on an intermediate position, you can push the button and kind of slide this to a spot that you like, and you can use this friction lock to get this in place. Now the big question here is, which side do I want this on? Do I want the fine control pointing toward me, or do I want this available to my thumb? This is going to be up to you. For me, I'm going to put this fine control pointing back toward me, because if I am taking a really long shot, I want to be able to very precisely get this into the exact spot that I want, and then I can just reach around with a finger to stow this afterward. Installation is simple, but this is probably not something you want to do in the field very often, because you can actually lose those parts. They're not captured. But this is M-LOK. There's a key mod version as well, and I'm going to show you just how quickly this attaches. Before we do that though, I'm going to put this in its stow position to point something out. With a really long handguard like this, it's easy to put my bipod where the muzzle brake is going to blow the feed off and melt everything. You can see that out there. It's actually extending past the muzzle. So what I'm going to have to do is be pretty judicious about where I pick a slot to install this. This should be pretty decent right here without melting anything. In typical M-LOK fashion, all I have to do is use the supplied Allen wrench. This actually did come in the box. Loosen this up. And I want to make it so there's enough of a gap that it'll actually fit the slot inside there. Do the same thing for this side. Don't back it out too far. Like I said, this is one that you can lose parts out in the field, so do be careful if you're going to be messing around with it. That just slots neatly into place. And then as I start torquing this down, it's going to turn that M-LOK key in there, and it's going to snag the rail. Done. We just need a couple of things before we head out, and of course one of the foremost ones is going to be ammunition. This is the Hornady Black. So that has a 105 grain BTHP match bullet, and this is going to be your more affordable option for now. These bullets perform very well in 243, as I have tested in my own rig. Make sure you check out that series that I'm working on here with a preferred barrel blanks barrel in a Savage 12 FV. But this bullet is actually very good terminally. That's one of the things that they don't really talk about in here, but I have actually tested this on ballistics gel, at least in the 223 version of this. That's a 75 grain bullet, and at 100 and 200 yards, it does make quite a mess in gel. It works really well. And then we have Hornady match ammo. This is the ELD-M that everybody's talking about, the 108 grain tipped bullet. This is a ballistic tip bullet. This one's going to get you your longest distance. This one's going to be the one where you get to show off. But for practical effect, I think both of these will actually work quite well. This one should actually be decent on game, even though they're not going to say so, and a lot of people will poo-poo the idea. But the thing is, this has a very big sectional density. This is a very long bullet. It's going to have a tall column of lead. Even if it's not a very hard lead, this should provide a whole lot of punch on that target. It's going to flare quickly, probably a lot like a varmint bullet, but because it has so much lead behind it, it should really carry through any game. I expected this actually would work, and maybe we'll be able to test that on gel as well. But one of the last things that we're going to need is to make sure that everything runs perfectly up here, and for this, I'm going to do the initial lube job. From the factory, all this should be lubricated, but you know how it goes. Sometimes in storage or transit, who knows what happens, and they might not function correctly right out of the box. I expect that the CMMG will, but just in case, I'm using this stuff. Spartan Accuracy Oil from Modern Spartan Systems really is magic. I've been talking about this on all the rifles and pistols that I've been testing lately. I use this everywhere. It just works really, really well. Number one, it stays with the parts. It doesn't seem to evaporate off. And then it also doesn't really loft back into your eyes when you're shooting suppressed. An AR like this one, when you get the gas coming back down the tube and kind of blowing through here, a lot of the time I get this stuff in my eyes and it really hurts. You know, come up through the gap in the charging latch back here. This does not do that. This works in all situations, all temperatures, and this is a very highly recommended upgrade to whatever rifle you have.
And that's it. That was easy. The Endeavor 300 has all the right parts already in the right spots. All I had to do was just slap on a bipod and a scope, and then I'm really good to go. The only thing left is to sight in this scope and to get everything kind of adjusted on the back end here so that it fits me just right. Make sure that you check out some of the videos that I've produced in the past. I'll put links in the description below showing how to mount and level a scope and how to adjust your length of pull to get it exactly right for you so that when you go lay down to take that perfect shot, you're not having to kind of squirm around and things are just uncomfortable. There really is a best way to set this up, and if you do it all beforehand, then yeah, when it comes time to take that perfect shot, you'll be ready for it. Thanks a bunch for watching, you guys. Make sure that you like, share, subscribe, and especially hit that notification bell because we have a lot more content coming out. We will be testing this rifle at some kind of extreme distances, and we'll be doing just some fun kind of practical tests with this. Okay, maybe some of them will be a little bit impractical, but they're still going to be really fun. And we have, of course, other cartridges that we're continuing to work on. We're going to be testing out some 243 against ballistics gel. We have all kinds of fun stuff coming up here soon, so don't miss out. Thank you to patrons of the Destructive Arts that have made videos like these possible. They're the guys that buy the audio equipment and a lot of the other things that help me to produce some of these higher quality videos so you can really get hopefully a good idea of what some of this equipment is actually like and what some of the techniques should look like too. So thank you, Sportsman's Guide and Stan and Mary at the 338 Lapua Magnum levels. And then at the 300 Win Mag level, we have Joseph Davis, we have Peter, and we have Mr. No Name. And then we have a whole bunch of guys chipping in $1 or $2 a month to help to buy equipment like this and keep me in primers and powders so that I can hopefully pass along some of this info to you. And if anybody else wants to sign on, I'll put a link to Patreon around here. See you guys around.
Thanks for watching. If you liked this video, be sure to like, share, and most importantly, subscribe. Even if you didn't like this particular content, go ahead and subscribe. There's probably something coming that's more up your alley. Check out this playlist right here. This is going to have videos in a similar vein to what you just watched. These two videos we cherry-picked for you. And finally, The Social Regressive is on Patreon. So, you can become a patron of the Destructive Arts and earn some goodies while helping us to provide high-quality videos just by kicking us a few bucks a month. Thanks a bunch for your patronage.